Welcome to the Funhouse. I'm Alexa Meade. This is where I live when I'm not living at the art studio. I actually have this huge show that's up right now in New York. Actually, it's not up, it's temporarily closed, called Immersed in Wonderland. And in that space, I've painted everything, the walls, floor, props, and I've made it look like a two-dimensional painting that you're able to walk inside of. Since my show is not open because of the pandemic, I'm here in my home, turning it into a work of art as well. I've been taking things around the house like a can of soup or a banana and just transforming it into my artistic reinterpretation. And today I'm going to be doing some little arts and crafts things with you all too. And we're all here locked up at home. We might as well take these familiar things around us and make them a little less familiar, add some more color into our lives. Today, the objects I have with me are a banana, which I'm going to note, this is actually a plastic banana. I don't usually eat bananas, so I hope you don't mind. You can use a real one though. Book. What's really great is if you get a hardcover book, oftentimes you can take off the dust jacket and then you have a white surface to draw on. Got shoes and a bunch of art supplies too. Normally I use paint pretty exclusively, but I know a lot of people out there just don't happen to have paint on hand. So I'll also be using markers, including my trusty set of Pentel markers I got in 5th grade and have held up beautifully. And colored pencils. There's also just normal pens, anything you can get your hands on. All right, I think I'm gonna get started with a can of soup. You will end up having a pantry that looks like an Andy Warhol explosion when you just have your food turned into art. This was a version that's painted in my 2D, 3D style, but today I'm going to be doing something a little bit more basic and accessible for you to make at home. First started with my can, and I cut a piece of paper to be about the dimensions, not that paper, this one, to go around it. I would recommend doing it on a piece of paper rather than directly on the can, because if somebody ends up wanting to eat that soup, they probably want to be able to look at the instructions or ingredients list. I would also recommend that you measure your piece of paper to fit it and then work on the paper flat, because otherwise the ridges of the can might cause some issues. What I'm going to do right now is just mark essentially how much of the can is going to be visible while I'm working on it. So just this narrow band in it essentially is all that we're really going to see when it's face forward. I think for this one, I'm going to use colored pencils. These colored pencils are from my Prismacolor set. They are also circa 5th grade. Kind of amazing how long all of these supplies have lasted. Whereas like paint, I use it for a week and then it's squeezed out and dried. But these markers and colored pencils, they've been going the long haul. All right. I'm going to be using my can of soup as a reference too while I'm working, so that I'm able to know what my target is. Of course, you're able to paint or draw whatever you want. I just think it's kind of fun taking something that we're used to seeing and is real and just adding that slight tweak to turn it into art. So rather than making this a zebra patterned can of soup, I'm making it a can of Campbell soup, but just Andy Warhol-ified. Let me see how I can get it so you can see it at a better angle close to the camera. So let's see, what if I do it like this? Okay. All right, can of soup. Bear with me here a moment. All right, it's gonna be too hard for me to copy the exact Campbell's logo, so I'm just going to make it a little looser. That's part of the fun of it too, is not getting too finicky and perfect with it. I also say that because I'm not a good enough artist to do it perfectly. Something you'll notice in my work is that I make things like a little rough around the edges, a little wonky. And part of that is intentional because that's my aesthetic and I like the way things look that way. But also allowing it to stay loose and not be perfect allows me to actually finish things. And that was a huge problem I had when I was younger. So I could never finish anything because I thought I had to do it just right. So instead, I'm going to focus on just having fun with it. Let's see. Soup. Get red colored pencil. Oh, I have to sharpen my red colored pencil. So instead, I'm going to use neon pink. This is cream of mushroom soup. I really wanted to find the old time chicken noodle soup or tomato soup from the Andy Warhol aesthetic, but I couldn't find it in the store. So I'm just going to pretend like this is chicken noodle soup instead of cream of mushroom soup. I don't know who eats this. And I think to make that stand out a little more, I'm going to go over my black lines with a marker. Actually, my Pentel markers are awesome, but that's a little too skinny. So I'm going to pull out a Sharpie. I'm going to allow myself to be really loose with this. Oh, and that was supposed to be the P over there, and I messed up. Just going to improvise. It'll also look like a little kid did this one. And I'm kind of okay with that. Now with cream. Let me just get a sense of how this is looking. Yeah, I mean, that'll brighten up my pantry some. And when I say pantry, I mean my pantry's totally filled, so I have things on my counters. So there's no hiding my soup cans. So this is now just, gonna be among the full display. I'll also note that if I were doing this for real at home and not having camera on me and narrating and talking as I went, I probably would do this in an aesthetic beyond second grade. But I mean, that's part of the charm of it, is you work with what you got. And tape that on. And voila. You can even have fun with it too, doing multiple cans of soup. You can make your own display. Also take some photos of it and show them to me, because I would love to see the final product in situ. Now we're gonna do banana. You can see over here that I did this all Andy Warhol style, which pretty much is just taking black Sharpie and putting in some like bruise and shadow spots on it. This one, I think I'm gonna make it more like a puppet. So I'm gonna make a nice little face on my banana. And it'll just look fun in my fruit bowl. Stand back at me. Happy little banana. I felt kind of Bob Ross saying it like that. Some ears. And what's great is that there are many facets to the banana. So you can do many faces and many characters. Put on a little banana puppet show.
That reminds me of the grandparents in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. They're like in the same bed.
Oh, yeah, that is kind of cute that they're like two peas in a pod, except it's two banana faces on one banana. I'm gonna put that down and show you all some other uh, different household items you can play with. Uh, let's see. So with shoes, having a pair of white canvas shoes is the ultimate blank canvas, but I know a lot of you have colored shoes, maybe they aren't canvas, and I would recommend using for those either Sharpie or paint. Colored pencil, not really gonna stick. Also, anything that you're gonna put on shoes, it'll probably end up fading over time, or wearing off when you wear it. So it's probably gonna be more an old pair of favorite shoes you can't get rid of that you're never actually really gonna wear again. That'd be preferable. Let me find the other shoe to that pair. Okay. For this one, I'm gonna do paint. All right. And Sharpie works just as well. I'm just more native with paint than really any other supply, so that's my preferred medium. You can use anything as a paint palette. Like this is a lid that was on something that I don't have anymore. So just squirting my paint on there. And what I'm gonna do is anywhere that I see a seam or a crease of any sort, I'm just gonna outline it with a thick, exaggerated black outline. I'm not going to be really adding too many other details than what's already there. You can, of course, sorry, let me back up. So this is how I would paint something if I'm doing it in my normal 2D, 3D style, especially if it's for a part of a street art piece. But you can paint your shoes however you want, you know, put flowers on it, decorate it, write a quote from something. There's no need to be limited in any of these activities by what I'm physically doing on screen. It's also really satisfying putting paint on something that is not just a flat canvas or something 2D. Again, you can see that I'm coloring slightly outside the lines. One thing I like about that is that it really makes it look like an artist's hand touched it and that it was painted as opposed to it was printed in a factory and shipped to you. Like this is your art, this is your customization of your personal fashion. You can see that some of the texture comes through in there, which you might like that. Typically, I try in my work, if I'm going to be photographing that and want it to look like a two-dimensional painting, I try to take out any of that texture because your eye will catch it and you'll see the 3D depth. So I would just go in really thick with the paint and get in all those little white gaps. Something to be careful about is that unlike a canvas that you have up on an easel that is being supported by something else, you're physically holding the work of art, and I can tell that I just got my fingers in the paint. So expect to get messier than normal. That's why I'm wearing a shirt covered in paint. I tend to just wipe it on myself. And also just be aware that you could have just spent a really long time painting on this part of the shoe and love it, and then you're just destroyed in the next moment. So don't be too precious about it. Or figure out a way to rest it on something, and maybe you're like have it rested on a book and you're rotating the book around to work around it. You couldn't get Scotchgard or a similar type of spray to put on top to seal it, which should make it a little bit more durable if you try to wear it in real life. I don't actually try wearing my painted clothes in real life. Usually they're just for a shoot or for an art exhibition, so I can't vouch for how long it will hold up with real wear and tear.
Alexa, I have a question about the paint. So are you it's just regular paint that you would use to paint on a canvas? It's not fabric paint, right?
I'm not using any sort of special paint. This isn't even the paint I use to paint people or anything. It was just whatever I could find at the art store. You can use, I would recommend actually you only use acrylic paint. Oil paint takes a while to dry. I personally don't even use oils. I'm afraid of the toxicity that's heavier in those than in acrylic.
Cool, thank you.
Cool. I'm just going to put this down for now, but you get the gist. Also, since there's so much white space up in the top here, you wouldn't even really notice looking at the shoe that it's painted unless you like come down to the sole. So I just threw a little black accent into it to draw your eye over to see that. Oh, hey, my shoes are painted. All right, let's see, what else? So when I was actually taking my time to paint stuff around the house, painted my favorite book, Infinite Jest. I painted all these little creases and the tattered cover and everything. Today, I'm not going to be spending 3 hours painting a book, so I'm going to do it a lot faster. Something you'll note is you really don't want to paint the edges of a book because it'll end up sticking together. I tried doing an experiment with having paint pens do stuff on the sides, and it isn't really high impact or interesting. So I would say just focus on the cover and the spine and back cover. I like the artist profile from David Foster Wallace there featured. Hardcover books are awesome because you get to take off the dust jacket and have a hard surface underneath, which is normally white. If it's dark, you can get a piece of paper that you draw on and tape over it. What's also handy too about this is that if you don't like the way that you ended up decorating it, you can just put the dust jacket back over it and no one will know. Or it could just be like a secret for yourself. Maybe you put like the code to the safe under there and this is some like spy thriller thing or something. All right, for this one, I am going to use markers. You can choose to follow the actual real cover as I did here, or you can just decorate it however. I mean, throw some hearts on there or something. Let's see. All right, I'm gonna have this as my reference nearby, and I'm gonna get my Pentel markers. I was so obnoxious in like 5th and 6th grade about these markers. If anyone borrowed them, they'd have to put it back in exact rainbow order. I don't even keep them in rainbow order anymore, but I guess that's how I managed to keep all 36 of them for decades. Wait, I don't know. I'm not doing the math right now, but at least a decade, maybe even 2. Wait, yeah, I've had these for over 2 decades. Oh my God, and they haven't dried out. All right. Got some teal, red, tan color. I also feel like the pressure is really on here to make sure to do it right. And maybe I should have chosen a simpler book cover for all of you. Let's see. I'd also recommend using a pencil if you're not feeling too confident. At this moment, I'm definitely going to use a pencil. One sec. Okay. Probably not even reading what I'm doing there. Oh. If I were gonna do this like a baking show where everything just looks beautiful and every step, I probably would have gotten 10 copies of this book and had each of it like pre-done, one extra like 10% more. And then okay, cool, I'm just gonna do this line here and then swap new book. You see how beautiful this is, but I'm doing this now all on the spot, and my nerves are getting to me. It's not really coming out how I would prefer people to be viewing live. Hello.
It looks great, and I think what's so fun is that we all feel like we can express our inner artist without fear of needing to be perfect. That's the great part about this.
Especially since we are all just like at home hanging out. There is no pressure on this to be good. There's no pressure on this to be like a masterpiece. Everyone understands you're just chilling right now. So let yourself embrace the imperfection. Perfectly imperfect. There's a term for that. It's called wabi sabi. Where I'm gonna botch it, but it's essentially this Japanese idea that you spend your entire life becoming an expert to learn how to like have that certain amount of being able to let go and make it perfectly imperfect. Like just like that tiny crack in the vase is what finishes it and completes it and makes it the most beautiful thing, even more beautiful than pure perfection. Sorry, I'm gonna do this just like not holding up to the camera, and so I'll be a little faster. One moment. I'm really curious to see what you all have chosen from around your houses to decorate.
Yeah, and in a little bit after we put you guys into your breakout rooms, then Alexa's going to come around and you're going to get to like do Q&A with her and talk to her about your projects. So we'll definitely have a little more time for you to get the nitty gritty on everybody's individual choices. It'll be fun to see what everybody has.
Oh, I'm struggling here. If I were in a breakout group right now and I were doing this, I'd be like, I don't know if I want to show this to anyone, but too bad because I'm doing it here and you all are getting to see it. But even if you're not sure if you're into what you're creating, still in breakout group, fun to share it, get some feedback, see what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, the point is hanging out with friends, trying our hand at something new.
And also just like letting go of, I guess what you would normally do when you think of making art. Like you might think, oh, I'm going to make art. I'm just going to draw on this piece of paper or paint on this canvas. But it's like, you know what? Your banana can be a work of art, and just take that step and let the world be your canvas. All right, I'm actually going to put this down and say I'm actually like slightly embarrassed by this. But yeah, that one might have defeated me for a moment. I'm gonna come back to it later. And let me see, do I have other things here? This might be a good time for breakouts, and I want to see what everyone's been doing and provide some feedback. You feel free to ask me questions too. Like it could be questions about what you're creating or just general questions. So
Yeah, definitely. We can have people put some questions into the chat, and we can, send those your way, and so you can answer them, or you can, meet Alexa in the breakout rooms and talk live. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with us. I'm so excited to see what people create, and looking forward to everybody making their own home and their own little inner world a little bit more beautiful. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
thank you, everyone. All right, let's see what you got.
All right.